Nobody will ever take my throne, and anyone who tries will vanish like thin air. I remain king forever.
Before she became the woman history would remember, she was simply a little girl with dusty feet and bright eyes. In the Kingdom of Agbara, a child was born during a thunderstorm, so violent that the elders believed the heavens themselves were announcing her arrival. And when she finally entered the world, silence followed. Not ordinary silence, sacred silence. The kind of silence that makes people feel that destiny has just entered the room. Her father named her Zarya, radiance, the golden light that appears before sunrise fully defeats the night. And for years, that was exactly what she became. She grew through the palace halls like sunlight, fearless, curious, impossible to ignore. While other children played games, Zarya studied scrolls. While nobles wasted time with luxury, she listened to farmers, merchants, guards, and elders. By the age of 12, she understood trade better than ministers twice her age. By 16, she had read nearly every historical record in the royal library. And everywhere she went, she changed things. Disputes ended faster. Villages received help sooner. The people felt seen when she arrived. Slowly, without anyone noticing at first, the kingdom began imagining its future with Zaria on the throne. And her father watched all of it proudly, at least in the beginning. Far north of Agbara, powerful rulers controlled the trade route that carried salt, iron, and gold across neighboring kingdoms. And slowly, those rulers tightened their grip around Agbara's economy. Taxes increased, trade weakened, and the kingdom did not collapse immediately, but it began thinning quietly, like a strong man slowly starving. One evening, an emissary arrived from the north carrying an offer, a marriage alliance. If a royal daughter from Agbara married into the northern empire to the chief warrior, the restrictions would disappear and prosperity would return. The offer sounded reasonable to the prince's father, who was scared for his kingdom. Strategic, necessary, but inside Obakolade, something darker had already begun growing. Fear, because over the years, he had watched his daughter become more than intelligent. She had become influential. The council listened when she entered rooms. Soldiers respected her naturally. The people spoke her names with the softness usually reserved for beloved rulers. And deep inside, the king realized something terrifying. One day, the kingdom might choose her over him. Many rulers survived enemies. Very few survived the fear of becoming unnecessary. So Obakolade made a decision that would destroy the bond between father and daughter forever. He would marry her off to the powerful ones that threatened his kingdom. He convinced himself it was sacrifice. He convinced himself it was politics. But the truth was much simpler. He feared the woman his daughter had become. Zaria discovered the truth by accident. One night, while walking through the palace corridors, she overheard voices behind the chancel doors. The conversation inside revealed everything. Her father had no intention of allowing her near the throne. The marriage proposal was not only about politics, it was in removal, exile disguised as diplomacy. And in that moment, Zarya realized something devastating. She had spent her entire life trying to prove herself worthy of a kingdom that was nearly truly prepared to accept her power. The realization did not make her scream. It did not make her cry. It changed her silently, like a crack spreading beneath stone. She returned to her chambers and sat on the floor for hours, staring into nothing. The grief was enormous, but beneath the grief, something else began forming. Resolve. For the first time in her life, Zarya stopped asking for permission to become what she already was. The next morning, Zarya left the palace disguised beneath simple clothing and walked through the lower marketplace of Agbara. because truth often lives among ordinary people long before it reaches kings. Deep inside the crowded market sat an old woman named Iyawokoya, blind, ancient, and feared by many for the strange accuracy of her insight. The old woman recognized Zarya immediately, not by appearance, but by presence. As they spoke, Iyawokoya revealed what the market already understood. The kingdom was shifting. Chiefs were quietly questioning the king. Whispers spread through the streets like smoke. People had begun choosing sides, and the woman spoke the truth Zarya had already begun to suspect. A father terrified of his own child becomes more dangerous than any enemy outside the kingdom walls. Those words follow Zarya all the way back to the palace. But this time, the pain inside her had changed shape. It was no longer helplessness, it had become clarity. That night, beneath the shadows of the palace walls, Zarya secretly met with Chief Obasi and Zefra Oloya allies. The truth was worse than she imagined. Treasury record has been manipulated. Political letters confirmed plan to remove her permanently from Agbara. Several council chiefs were already prepared to support her publicly against the king. And then the unthinkable possibility emerged. The council could remove Obakolade from power. The weight of that possibility settled heavily over everyone present. Because despite everything, he was still her father, and this was the moment Zarya proved why she deserved the throne. A lesser person would have chosen revenge, but Zarya refused violence. She demanded that everything be handled lawfully, before the elders, before the council, before history itself. No bloodshed, no rebellion, no destruction, only the truth. Even in betrayal, she refused to become cruel. And in that moment, the people around her realized they were no longer standing beside a princess. They were standing beside a queen. Morning arrived peacefully. Birds still sang. Market drums still echoed through the city. Children still ran through dusty streets. But inside the palace, history waited. When Obakolade entered the Grand Council chambers, he immediately realized something was wrong. Zarya stood at the center of the room, surrounded by allies, guards, and elders. The atmosphere had already shifted before a single word was spoken. Slowly, the king began counting faces, and with every face he counted, the truth became clearer. The room no longer belonged to him. Zarya stepped forward calmly and presented the evidence before the council. The treasury manipulation, the political schemes, the plan to remove her. She did not beg. She did not rage. She simply told the truth. Then she asked the council to choose between fear and duty. One by one, the chief rose to stand beside her. And as more elders joined her, Obakolade finally understood the terrible tragedy unfolding before him. The daughter he tried to remove has become the greatest ruler the kingdom could possibly hope for, and he had nearly destroyed her because he feared being replaced. That same afternoon, Obakolade left the palace without his crown, without royal ceremony, without power. Only silence followed him. As he crossed the courtyard, he and Zarya faced each other one final time. And in that moment, there was no hatred between them, only grief. The grief of a father destroyed by fear, and the grief of a daughter forced to fight the one person she never wanted to oppose. He eventually walked away from the palace he once ruled, and Zarya watched him disappear with tears she refused to let fall. Because victory does not always feel triumphant. Sometimes victory feels like money. 3 days later, the kingdom crowned Zarya as queen, not through violence, not through rebellion, but through truth. And one of her first commands shocked the ministers. Her father's achievements will remain in the royal record. His victories, his wisdom, his failure, all of it. Because history, she believed, must tell the complete story, not only the comfortable part. And so began the reign of Queen Zarya of Agbara, a woman betrayed by one person who should have protected her the most, a ruler who fought for power without becoming cruel, a daughter the soil itself tried to reject. Wu continued growing anyway, because a tree never forgets the ground that refused its roots. But if the tree is strong enough, it rises beyond the wound, and one day the entire world rests beneath its shadows.